Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number LB4311C-350-652. This is a 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch single acting spring hinge, full mortise, contract grade, lube bearing, steel base, satin chrome plated hinge. Let's dissect the part number. LB stands for lube bearing. It is a friction reduced sort of construction from Bommer that will allow this hinge to act fairly smoothly, given the fact that it's not a load rated hinge at all. The 4311 is representative of the shape of the hinge. What that refers to is the 4311 is going to have a template pattern for the screw holes and also give you a 1/4 inch radius corner. The C in the part number stands for, they call it contract grade, but commercial grade. The leaf thickness is 130 thousandths thick, whereas standard residential hinges are about 97 thousandths thick. The -350, that means that the hinge is 3.5 by 3.5. It's really important to understand that the height is the first dimension on hinges. This is 3.5 tall by 3.5 wide. The height is the first dimension. Doesn't matter so much on a hinge like this, but imagine if you were trying to do a 5 by 4.5 or a 4.5 by 4, very common, and you were going to prep the door and frame. It would be really important to know that the first dimension is the height when you prep the door and frame. The 652 in the part number means two things. It means it's made of steel and that it is in a satin chrome finish. Okay. Now, this is, let's go through the extended description that is here. Full mortise. You can see from the swag on the hinge leaf here that the leaves are meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame when they're brought parallel to each other so that you can achieve the typical 1/8 of an inch margin. Contract grade, we talked about that, 130 thousandths. It's UL listed, and there's a stamping that's on there as well. So if you call up and say, I need an R-4667 hinge, I'm not going to know what that is because I don't have those numbers memorized. But there you go. That's what it is. Grade 1 hinge, that means that this has been tested to meet and exceed a million cycle, usage cycle. Non-handed, you can install these either left-handed or right-handed, doesn't matter. Self-lubricating bearings, that would be this LB version that's here. The way that this is accomplished is with these pads that are here that allow for a significantly smooth sort of operation to the hinge. Moving through the rest of the extended description, easily adjustable spring tension, we'll get to that in a moment. ANSI templated screw hole pattern. The location of these screw holes, which we'll go over in a moment as well, is called template. It's the template pattern. The pivot point aligns with a commercial butt hinge. If you are doing a door and that you require 1 or 2 spring hinges, you can mix and match this with a commercial grade ball bearing hinge. That's what that means. The vertical axis of pivoting is compatible with a ball bearing hinge that is of that thickness range from 123 to 134 thousandths. Made of steel, 1/4 inch radius, and that's accomplished when you're taking your router or whomever is making the door and frame a 1/2 inch diameter bit, obviously, and then you don't go back and square out the corners. That'll give you a 1/4 inch radius. Very typical and common. Now, let's look down below to the document called template and open that document up. We'll be able to look at that. That's going to give you the location of all of the screw holes that can be found. And speaking of these screw holes, screws are included naturally in a complementary finish. That template will give you all of the dimensions beyond what I've already provided, like the overall height of the hinge. The next document to look at is Certifications and Hinge Selection Guide. That will tell you for a 3.5 inch hinge, if it's up to 70 pounds, you're looking at 2 spring hinges and 1 ball bearing hinge. That would be okay. It says butt hinge, but use a ball bearing hinge. Locate that ball bearing hinge in the top location. Put your spring hinges middle and bottom, or middle or bottom. The reason for that is the top hinge does 70% of the work of holding the door up in its position. Spring hinges are not load rated. You don't want it up there. If you've got all spring hinges, you have no choice but to put one there, and that would be okay. But if you are working a ball bearing hinge into it, put that at the top position. If your door gets up to 90 pounds, go with all 3 spring hinges. Looking at the rest of the certification, by all means review that if you'd like some additional information regarding maximum door size, but we'll skip over that, allowing you to review that at your leisure. The next document to look at is installation instructions. Very simple and straightforward what's on here. First of all, the caution. Do not exceed 3 holes of tension if your door goes to 180 degree. If your door is going to get to 90 degree only, you can go to 4 holes of tension. Let's move into how to set tension on this spring hinge right now. Okay, setting tension on the spring hinge is going to be done by, once the door is hung, you've got the hinge screwed to everything and the door is hanging. With every order that you place, you will certainly get a tension rod. For every hinge that you order, you will certainly get a tension pin. You're going to insert the tension rod into the tension collar, and you'll notice there's a feature here and not here. That's the tension collar. Install this with it pointed up. You don't have to, but for purposes of this video, it's pointed up. Insert that into one of the holes and then turn it clockwise. As you turn it clockwise, you'll reveal new additional holes, and into one of those new additional holes is where you're going to insert the tension pin. 3 holes if you get to 180, 4 if you only go to 90, okay? If you install it this way, that's okay. Just rotate it counterclockwise to set the tension. Doesn't really matter. Again, it's non-handed. That is the balance of all the information on the installation instructions. Be conservative, set it to 1 or 2 holes, and then test the door and let it cycle a couple of times, and then adjust accordingly. You'll probably want to experiment with increasing the tension maybe on the bottom hinge first and letting that do its work. The point being is that adjust it so that the door works reliably. Whatever your requirement is for the door to become self-closing, maybe you just want to keep the dog out of the spare bedroom. Or maybe you want that door closed so that you're not heating it unnecessarily in a Minnesota winter. You know, a room that you don't use all the time. It might be a fire-rated door in that same home between the garage and the house, and that door must be self-closing and self-latching. It has to meet both of those criteria to be a proper fire-rated door. Now, I'm not a fan of spring hinges to close a door because they're not the most elegant way to do it. However, there are times when they're the only way to do it. An example of that might be a residential application in a condo, and you literally have nowhere to install a door closer. You have no ceiling height, you have no ability to open the door to 90 degrees and not have the body bury into the wall. It might just be something that spring hinges are good enough. An example of that might be just quite simply a stairwell door, hollow metal door, hollow metal frame. You got 3 spring hinges on it, and every time that thing closes, it's going to close shut tight all the way. You don't have a air pressure condition that you're going to need to contend with. It will reliably and predictably close every single time. That's okay. Now, if you have a scenario like, imagine a 3-flat, here in Chicago, a 3-flat building, the common front door where there's an electric strike. You're going to have different air pressure conditions throughout the entire 4 seasons that you'll deal with. You can have 4 seasons in one day here in Chicago. It's advantageous to have more spring hinges rather than less. I don't say that because I sell spring hinges to make a living, as much as I can tell you I've installed these and I've maintained them, and I've done it in scenarios where there wasn't enough spring hinges on the door. So you set that tension so high where you can literally hear the spring contort as you open the door, and then you've got to set the tension so high that it literally is closing on inertia alone. slam so hard that it'll literally bounce back open. I like having more spring hinges because you can achieve more residual stored energy in the spring itself when you get down to that crucial 15 degrees of closing. You want to get the door closed and latched, not slammed and latched. That's bad health long term for the frame, the wall, the door, the integrity of the opening. Look at that sort of door in 1 year. It's not going to operate properly. More spring hinges are better than not enough in that regard, especially in that 3-flat scenario where you are going to want to literally adjust it over the seasons. The window in a unit is going to be open in the summertime, so the air can rush through one way or another. You can adjust that. In the winter time, when there's less air pressure happening, you can adjust that and do so that your door works healthily and predictably and reliably. And again, if it's a fire-rated door, that's paramount, that it is not only closing but latching at all times. So that's how you set the tension on a spring hinge. Tension pins, tension rods can be bought separately. This hinge is available in every possible finish from Bommer. Your brasses, your bronze, your chromes, your satin, your polished, your nickels, your oil rubbed. Because they're Bommer, they can do almost any finish, really. If you want antique nickel, they'll do it for you. Maybe even polished bronze, they'll do that for you as well. Bommer, the name is synonymous with spring hinges. Their most popular or well-known hinge, of course, is their double-acting spring hinge, their 3029 series. And these are sold as each, by the way. This client bought 2 hinges. The 3029 is that incredibly common double-acting spring hinge that you're going to see all the time, but they get into more than that one. They get into the 7800 series floor pivots. They get into a comprehensive offering of single-acting spring hinges, as we have here. They get into non-spring hinges, very good quality material. Bommer gets into a very high-end line of lavatory hardware as well, and then also a line of specialty material like steel bumpers that you can apply to a double-acting set of metal doors when you have like a receiving area and you're going to come in with carts. They can put those wave-shaped spring reinforcements onto the face of the doors. There's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Bommer products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. What you may have noticed also in the video or in the images down below, the name Bommer, right above it, it says Made in USA. Now that's a fact that Bommer's quite proud of, as am I to represent them. If you have any questions on the Bommer, this is their part number LB4311C. 350-652 single-acting spring hinge, or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.